Welcome to the Career Chat Show with me, Yanmo. And in today's chat show, I'm going to be expanding on something that I mentioned in the last chat show where I mentioned the 4 P's. So in this chat show, I'm going to be talking about the 4 P's, what they are, and how that will help you in and on your career journey all the way to the top. So you have to be successful in your career journey. So what are the 4 P's? The 4 P's really is a framework, and it comes from a book called the Bible. So in the Bible, there is a story about a guy called Joseph, and his story really was just fascinating, but I have derived this framework from his story. So basically, Joseph was in the pit, which is the first P, and I will relate this to your career journey. And then at some point, he was in a place called Potiphar's house. At some point, he found himself in the prison, in the king's prison, and then finally, he found himself in the palace. So what are the 4 P's for you? Number 1, it is the pit. The pit is the place where you're just starting out on your career. So it's you're new to the career journey. You don't really understand what you're doing. You're probably fresh out of university or fresh out of college, and everyone is hounding you to get a job, or you want to get a job because you want to start to earn some money. So you're in the pit. The pit is a place where you don't really understand what your career journey looks like. You don't really have the skill sets, but this is the starting point. You don't stay in the pit forever. Or you ought not to stay in the pit forever, because Joseph did not stay in the pit forever. But the pit is a place where you start to learn. You're almost in the dark. You really don't know what you need. And you're trying to figure your way out. So this is really for early careers, right? Then you progress on to Potiphar's house. At this point, you're now leveraging some of the skills that you have learned in the pit. And you're leveraging those skills. You're learning what to do. You know what to do. You have a team, or you are what's the word I'm looking for now? You know how to engage with people in the workplace. So that is where you are in Potiphar's house. At this point, you're thinking more clearly about what your career looks like. In the pit, you're not really thinking about that. But by the time you get to Potiphar's house, which is the second P, you start to think about what your career looks like and where you would like to end up, right? And many of us at this phase, or this particular P, you're now going into mid-career. So when you move out of Potiphar's house, the next place you find yourself is the king's prison. You find yourself in prison. Now, when you are in prison, I know prison sounds like a really negative word, but bear with me, I would explain it to you. When you're in the king's prison, you have access to many influential people, because in the king's prison, Joseph found that he had access to the king's butler and to the king's cupbearer, right? So you have access to influential people. They've just done something wrong, and that's just where they are. But how does this relate to your career journey? It relates to your career journey because you start to understand how you deploy your skills. You're learning emotional intelligence. You're learning soft skills and how you bring that to bear. You're learning how to use that which you learned in Potiphar's house, because Joseph was in charge of the whole of Potiphar's house. So he understood management, he understood administration, he understood organization. So you see how you're now using all of the skills that you learned in Potiphar's house, and you now bring that into the prison. But what this is now doing is you're now understanding structures, you're now understanding systems, you're now understanding influence. Now, if you now want to get to the top of your career game, you do not stay in prison. You have to get to the palace, and this is where it changes drastically. And what am I talking about? This is when you become so valuable that you're the only one that can solve the problem. And I have said in previous chat shows how you have to invest in yourself and become so valuable, so that no matter what is happening, the CEO, the CFO, right, and everybody in C-suite, they have a problem, and only you can solve that problem. And if you do not take the time out to build your skill set up, if you don't take the time out to invest in yourself, right? Because you're going to go from the pit, you're going to go to Potiphar's house, you're going to go into the king's prison, so into prison. If you are not getting all of those things together, this is your portfolio. When you are sent for, because the Bible says that Pharaoh sent for Joseph, And he was the only one that was able to interpret Joseph and Pharaoh's dream, meaning he was the only one that had the solution. And after interpreting Pharaoh's dream, what did he do? He then gave Pharaoh the strategy. So, which means that when you are in front of the CEO of your organization or the director or the person that needs you to solve the problem, are you able to solve the problem? Because if you are able to solve the problem, I tell you, this is when you start to stay in the palace. This is when you start to command certain levels of impact and influence, and of course income, because you have interpreted Pharaoh's dream. You've also given Pharaoh the strategy. And when you read that whole story, Pharaoh says that, can we find somebody as wise as you? Meaning Joseph had the skill of saying, I will give you the strategy, but I know that if I'm the one that will give you if I'm the one giving you the strategy, I'm the guy that has to perform the role. So don't hold back in terms of when people ask you, do you know the solution? Do you have the solution to the problem? Tell them you have the solution to the problem. It doesn't matter who's going to deploy that problem. The truth is that as long as you're the one that gave the strategy, 9 out of 10 times you're the one that is going to be elevated to the position whereby you become so valuable that you are in the palace. And when you're in the palace, listen, you're not going to be eating what every other person in the pit is eating, right? Your level is going to change, your status is going to change, and everything about you is going to change. So that is really the principle of how to ascend, how to ensure that you are going to get to the top of your career game. And like I said, it's very simple. It's 4 P's. It's the pit, it's Potiphar's house, it is the prison, and it is the palace. Everybody wants to get to the palace, but the problem is, are you willing to do what it takes to get to the palace? So that is a framework I hope you can use depending on where you are, whether you're in the pit, whether you're in Potiphar's house, or whether you're in prison, that you can use to get to the palace. Remember that you also have to be thinking of how you're adding value, because when Joseph was in Potiphar's house, he added a lot of value because Potiphar put him in charge of his whole household. So he learned how to manage people, he learned how to organize, he learned so many different things. So regardless of where you are, it may not be the career you want at the moment, but there are skills that you can learn. There are skills that will help you for your tomorrow. So don't despise where you are. Take everything, because you're not always going to be in Potiphar's house. At some point, they're going to put you in prison, but it's not a negative thing, because you're going to meet influential people in the prison. Because don't forget, even though Pharaoh was in the palace, it was somebody that had been with Joseph in prison. It was somebody that he had worked with. It was somebody that Joseph had actually given value to, that remembered him and said, yes, I remember somebody that can actually help you. So you just never know. And I always talk about how you have to start to build your network, because when you are in prison, that is when you should be very intentional about building your network, even though it was 2 years plus later. But you never know when your name is going to be called up. You never know when you're going to be asked for. So it's very, very important that you look at the framework and you think for yourself, where are you? Try to get to prison, because if you can get to prison, and I'm using prison as a metaphor just to say that you're at a place where, you're in managerial roles, you have a bit of influence, you have a bit of team, try to get to that place where you are mixing with certain calibers of people, so that, and of course you're doing good work. You have to be doing good work, okay? You're doing good work, so that by the time there is a need in the boardroom, by the time there is a need in a different industry or in a different organization, your name is going to come up, and they're going to give you that call to say, are you available? So when everybody's clamoring for jobs online, and there's a place for that, right? When you're in the pit, when you're in Potiphar's house, but when you get to the prison, you're going to be headhunted. Joseph was headhunted. So you're going to be headhunted. So, but are you making yourself valuable? Are you learning? Are you networking? Are you building your professional network, so that by the time there is a need at the highest level, which is the palace, your name is going to be remembered? So I hope that the 4Ps have actually helped you. Let me know what you think about it. It's just a framework. I call it a career success framework that can help anybody whatsoever. Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button and subscribe and hit the bell so that you get notified every time a new video is uploaded. So let me know what you think. Is this a framework you think you're going to use or you're going to tell other people about? Let me know in the comments below. Until the next chat show, you stay blessed. Bye.